Right-wing influencer Blair White announced a few years back that she was moving out of the YouTuber capital state of California, that she would no longer be a resident of the Los Angeles area, and that she would instead be moving to based, anti-woke, red-pilled, low taxes, low property costs Texas as a trans person. Now, Blair White's entire brand has always been being the one good trans person. The one who calls out all those trans people who dare to ask you to call them by their pronouns despite not meeting your arbitrary standard for what makes a passing enough trans person. Who is brave enough to call out how there are only two genders, and that gender and sex are the same thing, and to claim otherwise is cringe. She's so brave to say these things, you know, she's the only person out there with a platform who's willing to say it, and so thank God for Blair White. You know, she's made a very big brand off of claiming the left exaggerates or even just outright fabricates any claim of bigotry or hardship that trans people have to face solely for their identity. And where she does acknowledge that said hardship exists, it's only in the context of, you know, trans people deserving it in some way. And so you'd imagine that Blair White, living in Texas over the last few years, would be very happy, right? Living under conservative policy on every issue, particularly gender and sexuality and stuff. And mind you, Texas right now is really cracking down on trans people's right to exist, with serious fines and jail time being leveraged towards trans people who break things like their bathroom laws they just passed. So, if you're a trans person, especially a rich, successful one who can choose to live wherever, it might not surprise you to find out that Blair White, despite advocating for and literally fighting to make all of this happen, has announced after only a few years she is moving back to California. That's right, after all of this shit, after all the grifting, all of the promoting of right-wing politics, Blair White is moving out of Texas and back to California. Back to the liberal state, where she is still, mind you, pushing right-wing propaganda about how Texas is better and California is a woke hellhole. But, you know, she chose to move back anyway, so I'll let you guys judge how much she actually means all those criticisms of the state for yourself. Conservative influencer Blair White is ditching Texas to head back to her home state of California after fleeing the Golden State in 2021. Blair White, who's 31 years old, announced this week that she'll be returning to Los Angeles after living in Austin in hopes of being part of the solution, quote-unquote, to help fix the ongoing issues instead of watching her home state burn from a distance. "I was born there, so it's home for better or for worse," the transgender social media star told her 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube. "There are a lot of problems with California, and a lot of people like to write off New York and California and say, just let them go overboard, let them burn. And I find that to be a very un-American perspective to hold." Oh yeah, for those that don't know, Blair White is back to being the most subscribed trans YouTuber. For a while, ContraPoints had pulled ahead of her and was at 1 million subs, and Blair White was like in the mid 900K range. But since Blair White has rapidly sped past ContraPoints, and is now without even like a shadow of a doubt, no competition, Blair White is the most influential, largest, most successful trans YouTuber by several magnitudes compared to the others. The YouTube star believes California is the most beautiful place in the world and shares that it's a shame it's run by demons, quote-unquote. "I want to be someone who's part of the solution. I want to be someone who doesn't run from problems," White said. "I moved to Texas in the middle of COVID, so I moved to Texas in crisis. The lockdowns weren't ending. So much trauma from that, so much craziness. So it was kind of like an evacuation." I love this. She's literally evacuating Texas for her safety to go to California because she's running from the problems she faces in Texas being a trans person. But her copium excuse is to say, "I'm going back to California to be part of the solution to fight wokeness because I can't run away from my problems." It's literally like reverse projection. I moved to Texas in the middle of COVID, all part of the craziness. White also said Los Angeles had become ghetto and downtrodden, but when she returns, she may seek political office in the future to help change the direction in which the city and state are headed. That's right, guys. Blair White may be running for office in Los Angeles. She was one of the many influencers and online personalities, including Joe Rogan, who fled California for Texas during the COVID-19 pandemic, amid the state's strict lockdown policies. White was born in Croning, about 100 miles north of Sacramento, and has gained popularity through her YouTube channel over the years for her outspoken political commentary and views on transgender rights and feminism. "I am a transgender woman who lives my life and goes out every day as myself," White told Newsweek in a 2017 interview. "I have never been assaulted for being trans. I have never had anyone on the street say anything nasty to me about being trans, but I was assaulted for wearing a Trump hat. I think that speaks for itself," quote unquote. The YouTuber transitioned in 2015 while studying computer science at California State University in Chico. Before starting on YouTube, she was a self-described social justice warrior with left-leaning views, but she said her views began shifting to the right during her college years. This has all been disproven, by the way. Her internet history goes back further than that, and she has been, posting grift shit way before. So her brand of being like a trans person who, realized that wokeness is wrong and breaking out of it, it's all nonsense. Now, we're not done yet, but if you're enjoying this video so far, consider dropping a like and a comment down below, and maybe subscribe and turn the bell icon on if you want to get notified when I go live or upload in the future. I'm curious if you guys can get this video to 1,000 likes and 500 comments in 24 hours. If you're up to the challenge, then YouTube will reward the video and the channel promptly with a severe boost in algorithmic favoritism. So thank you to everybody who hits that like button. Let's help to choke out these right-wing grifters off the platform, at least a little bit. Let's see what she's been up to as of late. In fact, she put out a video called "The Media is Lying About Me." I think it's about this very topic, so let's hear what she has to say. This is her, now back in California, presumably, because she couldn't run from her problems, She didn't leave Texas because they just made it illegal to be trans in public, basically. No. She loves the Texas Republican policy. She would never criticize it publicly. She went back to California because if she stayed in Texas, she'd be running from her problems, guys. She's actually being brave by moving back to California, and she's facing the torrent of wokeness. She's going to become a hero. She's not running from her problems. She's running at them now. Yeah. Totally that's what this is. Let's hear her out, though. Apparently this is Blair White back in California.
Get all these Google alerts, people texting me, people calling me, saying that they're seeing me on Daily Mail, New York Post, these different websites. This one's just a lie. Conservative stars now regret leaving California to follow Joe Rogan to Texas.
She wants to run for some type of political seat. It couldn't be that she's leaving Texas because it's pretty much illegal to be transgender in the state of Texas.
This is honestly...
Yeah, Texas is moving to make the most severe fine for using the quote-unquote wrong bathroom as a trans person. Blair White's in a really rough situation. Either she uses men's bathrooms in public or faces a $100,000 fine and 2 years in prison. That is what Texas's law is about to be. She is a rich, wealthy, well-off, spoiled brat of a person. If she has the money, you better believe she's moving straight back to California and not putting up with either going to the men's restroom, where she would look like a fucking crazy person walking. If you saw her walk into the men's restroom, she would rightfully feel weird. Every man there would rightfully feel weird. It'd be kind of fucking awkward, okay? She passes too well as a woman for it to make any sense for her to go into a men's bathroom. For that same reason, though, she can't go to the women's bathroom? She could face a $100K fine, dude. That is unbelievable. Of course that's why she's moving back to California. She doesn't want to lose $1 million every 10 days just because she used the wrong public bathroom, good God. Yeah, it is basically becoming illegal to be trans in Texas, and that is, we all know why she's leaving.
It's so embarrassing for her.
Do you think she can actually make a difference? Do you support Blair in her fight to reclaim California?
No, I don't. And I don't think there's going to be much of a fight. It's going to be more like, it's going to be embarrassing. Why is it? It's so wild now that we're at the era where these right-wing influencers have reached so much prominence. They're so popular, wealthy, famous, and favored by the algorithm. They're running for office now. Brendan Herrera, Blair White, like, these people are running for office and they do actually do pretty well. In the case of Brendan Herrera, he actually pulled some pretty impressive numbers, and he might win this upcoming congressional run. These people have gotten so famous, though, they can justify running for office. The right-wing grift sphere, I mean, these people are going to be making our laws if we're not careful soon enough. We got to fight these people.
Okay, welcome back to my channel. So I am in a hotel room in Las Vegas, and I'm supposed to be on vacation. I'm supposed to be relaxing. At least that was my promise to myself. And I never go on vacation.
Anywhere that's not Texas, huh, Blair?
So this was the one time, of course, I have to hop on here and address stuff. So as soon as I landed and was trying to zen out, I get all these Google alerts, people texting me, people calling me, saying that they're seeing me on Daily Mail, New York Post, these different websites.
Conservative transgender influencer Blair White is moving back to California from Texas. Do you think she can actually make a difference? Do you support Blair in her fight to reclaim California?
It's articles about me moving back to California. Now, I only mentioned this in a longer Q&A video on my second channel, which you should also subscribe to. And I didn't think it would be such a thing, but apparently it is. And unfortunately, whenever we're dealing with the corporate media, it's a story that suits the corporate media. And so I just wanted to correct some lies, some misinterpretations, intentional and otherwise, of what's going on here. This one's just a lie. Conservative stars now regret leaving California to follow Joe Rogan to Texas. It's no Los Angeles. No, it's no Los Angeles. And that's the other thing, people saying I'm moving back to LA, and I'm not. I'm not moving back to Los Angeles, just California. I get that it's like, I'm maybe nitpicking, it's media, it's whatever, but it's like, I didn't follow Joe Rogan when deciding where I.
Yeah, she did. In fact, every right-wing influencer, if you guys were around for that era, there was this big wave of right-wing influencers that moved to Texas, specifically like Austin, right when Joe Rogan did. They all followed Joe Rogan to Austin, Texas. It was like 2020 to 2021. It was this big wave, or sorry, 2020 to 2022. It was this massive wave of influencers moving from California to Texas for a variety of reasons, notably because Joe Rogan did it. Joe Rogan was trying to establish Austin, Texas as the new LA for internet influencers. That was the whole goal. It completely failed, fell through, and now these creators are realizing there was no bright, beautiful future in Austin, Texas for online content creators like Joe Rogan promised. It was fucking stupid to live there in a state where your identity is almost a fucking crime.
I wanted to live. If you follow me, you know that I actually have political aspirations beyond just running my mouth on camera here. I actually want to be part of the solution and run for office and fix my home state. That's the other thing, I'm from there, so I feel like basically it's trying to be spun as I'm either switching political, sides or teams or whatever tribal BS you want to, call it. Then I'm somehow admitting that.
Well, no, you're running from the fact that, like, you don't want to get fined $100K for using a public bathroom or use the men's bathroom. You don't want that to be your options when you have to pee every time you're out in public in Texas. Like, obviously, yeah. Like, you don't want to face years of prison time or a 100 grand fine. Like, yeah, like, we know why you're leaving the state. You can say it's any other reason, but, like, come on. The law is there. You're trans. You don't want to use a men's restroom. Like, obviously. When you go out in public, you do not use a men's restroom. We all know Blair uses the women's restroom.
Blue states are better. It's clearly like a media narrative trying to play out like, see, the conservatives all regret their vote. They regret living in red states. No, not at all, actually.
Not even red voters. Specifically you, Blair White. You, the woman who proudly became the largest trans creator on YouTube by peddling anti-trans propaganda, and have used your success and wealth to try and buddy up with the people who have helped to make your identity nearly a crime. We're not far off from it now. We're getting close. Every day we get closer. So yeah, like you definitely are scared of the fact that the monster you helped created actually came to be. I think Blair banked real hard on the idea that, yeah, this right-wing culture war stuff, it might swing into the upper, the right might win a few elections. They might pass some bad policy. But in the end, the Democrats will take it away, and angry conservatives will come to her videos to cope about how they're not in power. I think that's what she was counting on. I don't think she counted on any of the policies she advocates for ever succeeding. and affecting her life. She expected that society would just get more and more progressive, conservatives would just get saltier and saltier about it, and her content would just become a more and more vital part of their copium over the state of the world. Now she's realizing she has played a part in creating a real monster that isn't just fizzling away on its own like she thought it would, that these policies are taking effect, that she will be a victim of said policies living in that state, going about her daily life. No one gets to decide they don't have to piss when they're out in public. No one gets to decide how far they are from their home when they have to piss. You know, it's just, that's how it is. Like, obviously, she does not want to risk the severe consequences of breaking those laws, or the severe consequences of, as a woman, and she is a woman, she might disagree, but she is, going into a men's bathroom. You know, she probably doesn't feel very comfortable in there. Fair enough. That's the claim that supposedly is why trans women shouldn't be allowed to go into the women's bathroom, is that a quote-unquote man being there will make them feel uncomfortable. Well, like, hell, she'd probably feel quite uncomfortable surrounded by a bunch of men in the men's bathroom. So no scenario living in Texas is desirable to her, no matter how much she tries to pretend it's the case. She clearly has the money and wealth to not be a victim of the policy she advocates for, so she's chosen not to be. No one's criticizing Trump, or no one's saying this is Trump supporters broadly regretting their vote. This is you regretting not your vote, what you supported, what you backed.
Quite the opposite. I'm actually such a Republican that I'm moving back to my home state to fix it as a Republican and run for office eventually, right? And that's the other thing that's making it seem like this is happening this week. It's happening
Eventually, guys. I have a feeling that if she does run for office ever, I don't think she's gonna. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like the saying she's gonna run for office thing is just some nonsense she's made up in order to say, like, no, see, I'm gonna fight the woke here in their home turf. I'm actually brave. I'm not running from conservative policy. I'm running towards evil liberal policy.
soon, but this is definitely earlier than I would have, I don't even live there yet. I'm in the process. And by the way, I just have to say how disappointing it is. I realized this just before I started filming, that just days ago, I interviewed an Epstein survivor, and there was no mainstream coverage of that, no articles written up, not even right-wing media.
I will say, every video I put out on Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell has underperformed substantially compared to my normal content. Like, anything about AI, Epstein, and Ukraine. These three topics have gotten, like, bombed in the algorithm. I will say, like, it's not even just, like, the mainstream media not wanting to talk about these things, but, particularly when YouTubers put videos out, even large YouTubers, when they put videos out on these topics, they underperform really hard. Almost as if the algorithm is protecting itself from certain topics being discussed. Particularly the Epstein stuff. Like, it's really weird how much YouTube is suppressing content on Epstein. It's really weird. With interest as high as it is, and yet, like, engagement and views on Epstein-related videos as low as they are, YouTube's trying to suppress this story as much as possible, clearly. They do not want creators giving commentary on the Epstein case.
You know what I mean? Not even, like, nobody's Breitbart, nobody's Newsmax, like, not even the ones that maybe would run that. And so that's how even the right is extremely disappointing with this stuff. You would think that in a world that makes any sense, the story would be that I interviewed an Epstein survivor this week, right? Like, two things happened this week in Blair White world. One, I mentioned offhand on my podcast that I'm moving to California. And two, I interviewed a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein who was paid $2 million to be quiet, but chose to speak on my channel. So just have to put that out there, that the media is disgusting. And I know it's just about making money, right? And I get that, and they can make money off of me, but I'm going to make some money off of this as well. So here's an ad. So do you ever catch yourself...
Oh my fucking God, bro. Oh, Jesus. Oh my fucking God. Well, we got 3 minutes into the video before we got to the ad. How long's the ad segment? Okay, it seems like the ad segment ends at the 5-minute mark. Okay, cool. Just gonna drop this, her admitting 6 years ago that she uses the women's restroom. Oh yeah, everything about her character is completely fake. I mean, obviously she's a massive grifter. She never puts out a video without a sponsor. You guys know how sponsorships on YouTube work, right, by the way? Like, you guys know how that shit works? Like, YouTube, like, when you make a video as a creator, there are two types of creators. Those who put out videos and try to get a sponsor on the video while they're making it, to help add to the amount of money that video will help make them, make it a little bit more lucrative for themselves, and then they'll put out the video. And then there's the YouTubers who get into long-term sponsor deals where they need to ship a certain amount of content in a certain given time period by a certain date or whatever that has ads for that product. Otherwise, they'll break the ad contract. The space is getting a lot more oriented towards the latter than the former, where it's like, hey, we're a fun product. Do 3 streams where you promote our product and we'll give you $200. It's like, that used to be the world of sponsorships. Way more straightforward, way more just easy to understand, not as shady. You know, it was a very simple transaction for ads. But nowadays, all these creators are like, none of their videos come out without a sponsorship. Not because they're able to get a sponsor for every video, but creators like this make a video when their sponsor tells them to, if that makes sense. Like, Blair White made this video almost certainly because that sponsorship she just did, that company, by the end of the month probably, wanted her to put out a video where she advertises their product. Like, that is the number one reason she made that video, I guarantee you, is to make that sponsor segment. A lot of creators operate that way. Not me, though, because I don't take sponsors, except for the coldest water. I did take a sponsor from the coldest water bottle. It's the only sponsor I've done, but they're pretty fucking based. I still have my coldest water bottle. I drank from it today, actually. Good product. Not sponsored by them anymore, though. Here's that clip, though, of Blair White that... I use the men's bathroom, but I'm trans. This is from 6 years ago. Dude, this is 6 years ago, and people are just like, the fuck? I think that guy is pretty sure that she's going... You know what most people are going to assume when they see her going into the men's bathroom? So... is she fucking a guy in there? Yeah, like, is she... Like, that's what everyone's going to assume when they see her walking into a men's restroom, is that she's going to meet up with a guy in there and fuck him. Not prostitute situation, bathroom fucking. There are couples that are into, like, voyeurism that do that kind of thing. Like, the guy will go to the men's bathroom, and then, like, 5 minutes later, the girl goes to the men's bathroom and they fuck in a stall or something. Like... weirdos do that kind of shit, like public intercourse in like illegal, risky situations like that. That's what people are going to assume is happening when they see her walking into the men's bathroom. Like, there was another dude in there with me. Now it's just those two. Are they in there fucking? Is that what's about to happen? I'm getting out of here. He's 100% assuming that.
Am I the right restroom or are you the right restroom?
Is this the...
Wait. I'm sorry. How is Blair White's channel still on YouTube? Who already knows what she's doing right now that is against TOS on every content streaming platform? How did she get away with this? Filming in a bathroom. Wow, I picked up my my tissue and my pen. Yeah, why is she okay with, or why is YouTube okay with her filming in a bathroom? This is literally like instant ban under all circumstances by the rules. YouTube never bans people who make the money. That is true, Ride the Rails. I forgot. She does make them a lot of money.
Men's or the women's?
Pretty sure it's the men's.
Sorry. I think this is the right one, though. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, that was fun. Damn, back when Blair White content actually had some spice to it, when she actually put in some effort. There was a time, oh my god, she really did fall off, didn't she? Not in terms of popularity, but content quality. I swear to god, did she not used to have skits in her videos? I swear, like 2020 and 2021, like around like the COVID era, I feel like her content was really high quality in terms of its production value compared to now. It wasn't just her talking into the camera. She would do like a bit where it'd be like her with her guns in her car, and it would be like cringy and all. It was bad, but like she had like little mini skits or like a fake little funny music video bit at the start of her videos for a while. Or, like, she'd do, like, a skit of some kind. I swear that was a thing she did for, like, a year or two and stopped, I guess, because I guess the amount of effort she was putting in wasn't making a difference to her bottom line. But, like, it is kind of sad, because that whole bit there was... that I'm already convinced that this video has more entertainment value, especially to those who agree with the content, than what she puts out now. It's such a shame that she just does, like, the slop, like chair rant videos nowadays, and doesn't, like, do neat little skits like that, like she used to. That sucks that she rolled things back. Regardless, though, Blair White is huffing some mad copium right now, trying to convince her audience that she is not just running away from the conservative policies she so proudly supported, but she is a grifter, and she is absolutely not fully on board with the right-wing politics she espouses. In fact, Blair White, I'm sorry. One of Blair White's most frequent issues back in the day was her tendency to identify a trans YouTuber that she found to be politically opposed to her or didn't pass well enough, and she would just harass the fuck out of them and try to claim they're not truly trans, right? Well, Blair White went ahead and attacked a YouTuber named Riley J. Dennis and said, "Why should I call you she if you're not even on hormones?" And Riley J. Dennis responded, "I've actually been on hormones, estrogen, and hormone blockers for testosterone for a year now. They affect people at different rates. I'm not as feminine right now as I would like to be, but, in a few years, I'll look more like you. I'm sorry I could not meet your standard. I'm taking the medicine. I'm doing the things. I'm doing all the things you did to be valid as a trans person. Why am I not valid, but you are?" And back then, 8 years ago, Blair White wasn't openly conservative. She was more, as they called themselves, classical liberal, like the Sargon sort of euphemism for, like, my politics are some kind of left-wing, even if I just criticize the left all the time. Because the idea was supposed to be that these were progressive people, or I guess left-wing people, who were criticizing their own because they wanted the left to become better. In the end, it turned out these were all conservatives grifting off of, like, shit-talking the left, and they did not want to commit to being part of the right, so they just kind of sat on the fence on most things. They refused to take up a strong label like they do today. So here's an example of what Blair White actually believes back when the landscape was not as favorable towards outright hatred and vitriol towards trans people. For the grift. Like, back then, you still had to play some level of civility politics. So here's Blair White supposedly being sincere.
As a person, I shouldn't have done that. And what I'm going to say next is probably going to shock you guys, because it shocked me. And this is the part that really put things into perspective for me. I've only been on hormones a year longer than Riley. Riley's getting her first transition-specific surgery this month, so am I. We are basically at the same point in our transition, yet the internet and myself have participated in this, like, false juxtaposition between me and Riley, that I was a real trans person. Riley was a fake trans person. And the truth is, we're almost at the exact same point in our transition. And I'm someone who's had my transition picked apart online. There have been Reddit threads and 4chan threads with hundreds of comments on it of people trying to prove that I'm not trans because I haven't done this or that, or, digging up my old pictures. And, I'm a strong person, I'm a happy person, but to sit here and pretend like it doesn't affect me at all would just be a lie. So the thought that this entire time I've done that exact same thing to someone else and pushed that off on someone else fucks with me, and I'm fucking sorry for my...
She's had to apologize like this in the past multiple times. Mostly because at a certain point, her audience was different from how it is today. At some point in the last few years, Blair White's audience fully switched to almost 100% conservatives. At this point, Blair was still an audience of 50-50 conservatives and the tea community. Because half of Blair White's videos were right-wing politics, the other half was tea, makeup community drama, tea community drama, back when that was, big, like really big. She had very broad appeal. Like, half of her audience was not conservatives or people invested in politics. And a lot of those people that weren't in the conservative half of her audience were relatively, if not overtly, pro-trans. So when she pulled stuff like this for the first half decade of her career, she had to apologize for it when she went too far. Her audience held her to account at one point when she took things too far. Yes, she's never been a voice for good at any point in her time online. Yes, her audience has always been one of the most toxic communities of a trans creator online. I'm not denying that. But it wasn't as bad as it is now. It used to be way better, to the extent where her fans, Blair White's fans, made her do this tear-filled apology to regain their approval. Yet at some point, she did enough of, I guess, the reverse of audience capture, where she un-audience captured herself from that moral portion of her fan base and replaced them with an even larger proportion of people who are just hardcore conservatives that want to see her hang out with Alex Jones and talk about how trans people on the left must be defeated and stopped, right? She is decidedly further right in her expressed rhetoric now than she was in years prior. And yet, I think it's really always been a character. I think she's probably relatively centrist politically. If you could actually scan her brain and know what she truly believes, she's probably quite centrist. Maybe some cringy chud beliefs that she sincerely holds, but for the most part, she's probably a normal politics person. Like, she probably has relatively center to left-leaning politics. Realized at some point that the idea of a trans woman who passes really well and has a decent, skilled for speaking and producing content could dominate an entire, niche, that being the transphobic trans person niche. She recognized there is a whole marginalized group out there that doesn't have a prominent, traitor that is, advocating against their rights, which the right always boosts and makes wealthy. If you're willing to be a token for the right, it's always an easy paycheck. And I think she realized she could be the first and biggest trans token for the right at a very early time. And it was a very, very good business decision for her. For the last decade, she has enjoyed being the largest trans YouTuber or public figure on the internet. Really let that settle in. There is no trans person that is known for being a YouTuber with a larger platform than Blair White, as far as I'm aware. Last I checked, Samantha Lux was, in the hundreds of thousands, and she's based. Who's another big trans YouTuber? Sam Collins, I think his name is? Yeah, Sam Collins. He's pretty big, but not Blair White big, the only place where you start to find large trans YouTubers that are countering the size of Blair White is when it comes to ContraPoints and Philosophy Tube, and she's past them. It goes to show that this grift is an effective one, and Blair knows it. There's a reason why she's not criticizing these laws. She's pretending she's still in favor of them, but she's still fleeing as far from them as she can get and going to the bluest state that has ever blued and choosing to live there when she's got all the money and resources in the world to live wherever the fuck she chooses. She chose California for a reason, and it's not because she's running towards her problems, I'll tell you that. Anyway, folks, if you enjoyed this segment and found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable in any way whatsoever, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch. The Streamlabs link down below if you want to financially support the channel. Subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already, and follow my social medias, linked down below in the description, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, particularly my fan Discord. That is the main hub of my community and fan base, the best place to be hanging out if you don't want to miss any community events, and if you join, you won't regret it. I hope to see you there, and I hope you enjoy this video.